What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
It's another Tuesday night, which means it's another episode of Dynasty Points, and we have a lot to be excited about tonight. We have another 5 for 5, so I can possibly maintain my winning streak and push it to 3 straight games as the victor. We have, obviously, if you looked at the title of the video, we are going to talk about how to beat the Dynasty market. This is a very dead period of the off season. There's not a lot happening. There really isn't a lot of movement, but that does not mean you cannot always be on the move for more changes to your Dynasty roster. So that, of course, very important. We have players that we think are either going to beat ADP or that we should just leave alone. Lots to get to today. I am extremely excited for today's episode. Of course, I am your host with the most time on his hands. You can find me at El Nostradamus. My fun fact of the day is Friday night, I got to see Jacob in person at a social, and well, let's just say the person at the bar did indeed ask if I was Jacob's dad. And so my fun fact of the day is, knowing that I could be Jacob's dad, he did not text me on Father's Day.
I'm Jacob, aka Tom's son, according to a very confused Winnipeg bartender. And I mean, everybody knows what my fun fact is. The Boston Celtics now lead all NBA franchises with 18 Larry O'Brien trophies / NBA championships right there. Congratulations to all members of the Boston Celtics, to fellow members of Celtics Nation on Twitter, and anyone who just has any affinity for the color green whatsoever. A true pleasure. And the more fun fact for the rest of you is that I'm going to go back to tweeting about football for the rest of the summer. So there you go.
Yes, that's what we all want. Lucas.
Congratulations once again, Jacob and Thomas. I'm sorry you did not get a Happy Father's Day message. That's just unfortunate. I'm Lucas Gilbert. You can find me on X at LGilbertFF. My fun fact, keeping up with a college baseball theme, because we got to try to keep the other sports going during the summer. Christian Moore for the Tennessee Volunteers, your Tennessee Volunteers for me and Jacob, hit for the first cycle in the College World Series since 1956. And he did it in 6 innings. And then eventually Tennessee went on to walk off Florida State. Man, it was a fun time, very fun time. So not as fun as Jacob's team winning.
So on brand for Lucas,
finals.
like we have the Stanley Cup Finals going on right now. We have the NBA Finals going right now, and you'll see like the people on Twitter that'll be like, oh, I don't care about the NBA Finals. I wish I was watching Patriots, Panthers, whatever. Like Lucas isn't even that. He's like, I'm watching college baseball, buddy. Like, don't even try me.
I'm telling you, these games have been outrageously good. They have been so freaking good. We had 3 walk-offs in the first 3 games of the College World Series, which was amazing. The 4th game, Texas A&M stole a home run from Florida in the top of the 9th to secure their 1-run win. Like it's been madness so far. Having a really good time with it.
Nice.
So yeah.
Anybody watching the Euros?
No.
Euro Cup?
Okay. So real football, all right, is what we're here to talk about. No, we're not talking about.
Oh my God. The quadrennial European soccer tournament?
No. So football, American football is what we're here to talk about today.
The Euros, but I guess we're not a very cultured podcast. I guess we don't think beyond our shores.
If we don't lose subscribers because of soccer talk, I would be truly amazed. No,
we've talked about every other sport other than football infinitely more so far in the first 5 minutes of the show, and that's wonderful. Like that's just crazy and random and fun.
Should I just bring up international cup stacking on the Ocho? Like, is that what's next? Is that just what we should talk about?
Actually, one cited international cup stacking in the intro to an article.
Get out of here! You did. You're gonna have to link
Yeah,
that to me. That's
it was all about stacking. Yeah,
that's super fun to me.
Oh, that's
What is
awesome.
what's really fun to me is knowing that this is the time of year where the Twitter industrial complex likes to go absolutely bananas with like, is this player gonna break out in 2024? Where is this player rank for you in 2024? Do you think he's better than Justin Jefferson? Like we're at like peak silliness season, and we're here to talk about it tonight. I think that there are core differences between someone who is a sleeper and someone who will just beat their ADP, because sometimes just beating your ADP isn't hard. You just kind of have to play like 10 games. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an elite player or you're going to gain this substantial amount of value, which I feel like is what a lot of people push when talking about this. And I think it's just important that we break down a little bit of what we think a sleeper might actually be. So that's a little bit of a breakdown for myself on how I view the two. Jacob, do you think there's a difference between the two? Is it something you even look at a lot? What does a sleeper mean to you?
Well, there's certainly a difference between the two. And maybe when we kind of get into the guys that we recommend, I'll get more into sort of my more actionable takeaway between the two things. But in terms of just what I think of when I think of a sleeper versus what I think of when I think of an ADP beater, a sleeper is effectively someone that comes with a low cost that you're betting on to elevate themselves in a way that I think is, you might even acknowledge is relatively unlikely, but certainly that the market thinks is relatively unlikely. And I think of that as being a little bit more sustained. It's a bit of a mix between production and value, in my opinion, especially if we're talking about dynasty sleepers. And an ADP beater is really just a player who, probably has a pretty limited ceiling, both production-wise and value-wise, right? We're probably talking about a middle-aged or maybe older player, and just has a median where the cost is simply too low compared to what that median projection is going to be. Whether or not that's a player worth drafting, I think we can talk about, and that's probably the more interesting question. But I think that's definitely the difference is that your ADP beater is probably more of a known commodity. They're going to beat their ADP in most of the circumstances. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good pick. We have more to consider there.
Well, it's really important too that when you get into the heavy content creating off season, and this is one thing that we don't do on this show that I am extremely proud of, that I see all over. We are not sitting here flag planting for players that are easy quote victories that we can also just brush off as, yeah, well, they were so cheap anyway, it didn't matter. Because that is a content creating trap. That is what a lot of shows, a lot of websites, they can do. And this isn't calling other websites or other podcasts, fucking trash. That's not what we're trying to do here. But it's one thing that you won't get from us. So we like to crack some jokes on players every once in a while, but there is a difference between identifying players that we truly believe in to people that are just easy to pick as like, yeah, this guy should definitely outdo his ADP. See, I was right. So that is one thing that we are sitting here going to kind of try to go over through the weeds. Who are real players in these categories, not these fugazi value fantasy football players, which there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot. Lucas, what's the difference to you and what does it mean for you?
I'm going to try keep it pretty simple with my definition. Whenever I think of sleepers, I think of, the positive connotation that we as fantasy football players put with that word, and then translate that into a sleeper, somebody who is going to outperform where you drafted them and actually help your team. I feel like there are going to be a lot of ADP beaters but those aren't necessarily the people who are going to be making those massive differences for your team. And a sleeper doesn't even have to make a massive difference. A sleeper can be somebody who's coming in and helping you for 2 weeks whenever somebody else is down. I'm still considering that person a sleeper, but ADP beater is somebody who's probably going to be on the back end of your bench. They'll gain value just because, they got another year in the NFL and they're not old. That's how I'm going to kind of keep it more simple. I think that we can definitely get into a much more complex conversation, and heck, we can even look at some of the older players who are going to, be better than what their ADP is kind of valuing them at, but they're obviously, not in the sleeper definition, or at least I wouldn't put them there.
I feel like there's just certain positions that this matters more to. Like, I feel like in terms of, say, sleeper, it's often like, here's a sleeper running back. And then if it's to beat ADP, it's usually here's a wide receiver. But for me, there's a reason we hammer on this program all the time. Value quarterbacks late, right? Like, to me, those are sleeper quarterbacks. These are quarterbacks that are going to beat their ADP because there's no reason that we should get, round 12 Derek Carr, right? Or round, you don't think Russell Wilson's going to play the whole year, Jacob. That's cool. But Russell Wilson, QB 33, should he get to play the whole year? I expect him to beat that. Like, these are players to me that are,
there are only 32 that play. If he plays the whole year, I think he'll beat 33.
But that's what I mean. But you're also saying that Fields is going to outplay him. I see what you're trying to do here. But Gardner Minshew, QB 34. Like, there's just so many examples of quarterbacks for me. To me, they're the easiest to identify because it's glaring. It's obvious. There's just quarterbacks that have like a stink. We talked about this on the show last week. Derek Carr is going to cost him $51 million to not play for the Saints next year. Right? So you're getting him at the 12th round because he's icky and gross. Daniel Jones, maybe he doesn't play past this year, but I don't see Drew Lock coming in and playing this year. That's not something that I see. And even if I did, you can just take your shot on Drew Lock later. To me, it's the easiest position to identify, and it's my favorite position to hammer in drafts. So is there a position you feel stronger about being able to identify, Jacob? Because I know you have, I should say, started to turn more of the running back leaf than the wide receiver leaf. So is that just an easier identifier for you, or how do you play that out?
Well, in the context of these ADP beaters that I'm drafting, it's usually the running back position is where I probably target them most frequently, but that's more of a structural thing, right? I think whenever you're filling out your draft, and I'll kind of do the zoom out of like, what do I think is the purpose of one of these like quote unquote ADP beaters? When do we want to be trying to target medians? And I think it's an interesting inflection point where you go through your dynasty draft, and in my opinion, at least at the top few rounds, really your most important objective, I think, should be preservation of buying power. You want to make strong bets that are going to be able to sustain their worth on your team for a long time. It allows you to be more flexible in the rest of your build. It allows you to maintain value on your team over multiple years. And then I think it kind of gets a little bit interesting in the middle. And, you can go either way. I tend to try to keep going with taking shots on younger players for as long as I can get younger players that project, or at least I project, to be meaningful starting assets. So, solid rookie options, strong bets going into their second year, dependable starters. I want to make those types of bets because I want to be able to capture that value upside. I want to try to smooth out some of the value downside. And then so I tend to bypass some of the real premium scorers in startups, maybe less so in trades. Then you get to this inflection point where the youth bets and the upside, it's clearly a higher bet on some of these versus some of these more veteran players.
Yeah.
However, I think the overall aggregate starts to swing back towards the veterans. And because I think what we see is once you get past those really strong bets, you don't really have any value insulation left, right? You don't have any value insulation left on, like, say, a Christian Watson right now. Certainly has a more appealing upside scenario than a lot of veterans priced around him. But he could just as easily be like around 18 pick next year, right? You think of guys like Jerry Jeudy or Elijah Moore in recent years that have been kind of on this bubble, right? That's a true either way type of bet. And that's when I tend to start to go towards some of the veterans, because they actually have some degree of safety, especially the wide receiver position. You think of guys like Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, like those guys are more or less just going to like slide around down in ADP for like the rest of their lives. They're going to lose a little bit of value, and like barring an injury, they're just on a slow, steady value decline. And I think that's where like I see the opportunity cost of drafting those points is lower once the bet becomes worse in terms of the young player. Once I feel like I don't feel like I'm missing out on a potential elevator ride to the top 2 rounds of startups, that's where I think that median is worthwhile. And then the strength of those median bets just starts to shrink gradually as you get throughout the draft until eventually you get to a point where it's almost meaningless. Like, and it depends on what your format is, totally. Assuming your format's not best ball, you get to a point where it's like, okay, Chris Godwin is an above replacement level player. That's a starter in my lineup. That's worth something to me. Not worth a ton. That's worth something to me. More if you have more starters in your lineup, of course. Someone like a Josh Palmer would strike me as when you start getting on the other side of that coin, where it's like there's not really a lot of value upside to Palmer. We kind of know what he is. He's gonna score some points. He's gonna score more points than probably most people he's drafted around. Are his points ever getting in my lineup? If I'm not playing best ball, if I'm not playing start 11, right? Like if I'm playing a normal start 9, start 10 Dynasty League, is there a purpose here, or am I just getting a higher bench player? Because I don't care if I have a higher scoring bench player. At that point in time, it's less worth the while for me. I'd rather just take random shots on rookies, right? So because of how I tend to draft, my replacement level at wide receiver is usually pretty high because I'm drafting a lot of wide receivers very early. My replacement level at running back, not so high because I'm probably only drafting one in the first 8, 9, 10 rounds. And then I'm just kind of taking, like you said, these ADP beaters. So if I'm going into a startup, I'm pretty likely to draft Ezekiel Elliott. I'm pretty likely to draft James Conner or Raheem Mostert or any of these guys. I'm in a startup right now where I drafted 3 quarterbacks the first 4 rounds. Actually, I drafted Kyler, Dak, and Drake May was still there in the 4th. So obviously I was going to scoop him up. And I drafted plenty of wide receivers. I think I had 5 wide receivers pretty early. My first running back was James Cook. I didn't draft my second running back till Jalen Warren in the 11th. And then I went and got, I think, 1 or 2 more receivers. So I only had like 2 running backs for like 13. But I was set everywhere else. And so that's where I was like, yeah, I'll take Zeke. I'll take Gus Edwards. I don't mind just like burning through these running back slots. That actually has utility to me. So because of how I draft more commonly the running back position. But I think if you, for whatever reason, a draft falls where you end up doing things the inverse way, maybe a circumstance where this would happen for me is you're in a league with like crazy juiced up settings at tight end or quarterback. Mm-hmm. Nobody else realizes it. Everybody else is it's a normal startup, but you've realized the scoring settings really favor a particular onesie position, and you're just going to hammer that position. You're going to make the bet that eventually people will realize that they were drafting inefficiently and they'll want to make some trades. So then you got to think about like, okay, I'm never clicking wide receivers, but I still need to get to 3 somehow. And I only drafted 1 in the first 8 rounds because I took like 3 tight ends because it was full point premium and an extra 0.5 for first down or something. That's when all of a sudden your replacement level on those wide receivers really dropped. That's when Tyler Lockett starts to look pretty good. Yeah. He does. Hopkins starts to look pretty good because all of a sudden your replacement level at that position has really dropped.
No. So the part that I just want to maybe touch on a little more, you mentioned that there's just a part when you get these guys that they're more likely to just be bench players. You're going to hammer the opportunity for rookies. Man, there's just a point in drafts, I feel like, where there's always the person you're playing against who just is laughing at the rest of the league for letting him get, Cortland Sutton in like the 12th round when there are still rookies on the field. I feel like there is a big disparity in when that line is to me. We got asked in the Discord today, and I feel like this is just a good kind of end topic for this bit. But I got asked, where's the cutoff between like roster clogger and sleeper? Because it does get to a point where players become more detrimental to your team than anything else. And you kind of touched on it, Jacob, when you talked about guys like Josh Palmer. People are really big Josh Palmer people for whatever reason, and I'm just not. But I don't necessarily think that he's like a roster clogger. So I'll throw to Lucas first. What's the cutoff between like a true roster clogger for you?
Dang, that's a really tough question, especially like I saw what you were talking on Twitter about. I think it was about Tank Bixby earlier.
Yeah, that whole tank thing I thought was pretty interesting.
So I feel like roster cloggers are, you know what they are, and they're not going to change from that. Whereas I still want people who are going to have a little bit of the unknown, like the sleepers that might still be sitting there. I know it's very easy to, do that with some of these like rookies, just looking through some of the ADPs right now. It's really tough though, especially with the way that I play Dynasty, is that all of these roster cloggers that are actually sitting there, you still have that little bit of hope.
Stop having that hope.
I know, man. We might need to have an intervention at some point in
Like
time.
Miles Sanders, he's done.
Yeah.
Like, just stop it. Get some help. Right? This is the Michael Jordan meme.
But, and not to spoil something for later, but you see somebody like Jelani Woods, who I know that D-Bro is very high on.
God. Everybody in on this Jelani Woods thing.
That's somebody who I'm not considering a roster clogger at this point. Thomas,
okay.
you probably
New
do.
Rule.
And maybe I
they
need to
play
change.
for the Colts and their position is tight end. They're a roster clogger.
You're already lost. It's Mallory. It's Kylan Granson. It's Mo Ali
It's
Cox.
no one and everyone. It's no one and it's everyone.
Yeah, Jelani Woods.
I
They're
see
all the
someone
same person.
I see someone like Elijah Moore. That's somebody that I've moved to roster clogger status.
Yes.
All right, Jonathan.
Do not
Mingo,
let
roster
Scott
clogger.
Barrett talk you into it again,
Shout out
people.
Rashad Bateman Bindles. He is like, if we were making, if this
I have
episode was
capitalized
on
on-
roster cloggers, Rashad Bateman is the cover image of roster cloggers.
I have been capitalizing so much on Rashad Bateman this offseason because I couldn't ever get rid of him.
There's just a list of guys: Jonathan Mingo, Tyler Boyd, Greg Dortch, Odell Beckham, Rondell Moore, Jacoby Brissett, Elijah Moore, Traylon Burks, Adam Thielen, Jalen Hyatt.
Brissett in the Superflex Dynasty League, he's going to start probably half the season.
Brother, you're just start a receiver if you're starting Jacoby Brissett with that team,
you
bro.
can get 15 points per game out of Jacoby Brissett and a
No.
Superflex.
I really don't think so.
Dynasty
Drake
League?
May would struggle to get 15 points per game in that offense. I'm going to take a less athletic, not good Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett for as long as he starts, which probably won't be in the fantasy playoffs, so limited value. But for half a season, he probably won't be meaningfully different than Derek Carr.
If you have look at this, if you have him and you have someone in your league that likes Jacoby Brissett like Jacob
I'm not
does,
gonna pay anything for him.
try to trade him to that guy. I just don't care.
I have one team where my only quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes and Drake May, and I would trade a fourth for Jacoby Brissett in that scenario. I
would immediately try to ship it off. There's just so many. Yeah, Bindle said he sold Brissett for a 2 recently. That's
for Jacoby.
That's just. I saw somebody. I saw somebody trade a fourth for Horner, like the backup in New Orleans, and I'm just Hayner, that's the one, and I just couldn't believe
I think he's
it.
Like the fourth stringer now.
Yeah, so there's a market for these whatever quarterbacks. It just if Brissett's the guy starting for you, your team's probably already lost.
Brian, you're being unreasonable.
Yeah, that's insane.
So
that's insane. But
the way that we're talking about them though kind of just shows just how ill-defined a roster clogger from a sleeper is. I feel like fair enough. But I think though that shows that whenever you're filling out the back end of your bench, I feel like we get too attached to some of these players that we might have priors on that we might think could be a sleeper, even
This
though,
whole-
they're in this.
People get thirsty for quarterbacks real quick. So, like, why? It's a super flex. Play a receiver and you'll have the same upside possibility. Stop thirsting. No, you know what? This episode has changed. Can we stop? I don't care about floor. If you're worried about 14 points or 15 points per game from your quarterback being the difference, that game is already lost.
Compared to your wide receiver 6, that's a pretty meaningful difference.
Already lost, bro. Like, it just, like, no. And then, but to the point where you're paying anything for them, get out of here, dude. Like, it very hard to be worth it at that price. Just pay up and get someone real, not a fake quarterback. Jacoby Brissett's a fake quarterback.
Well, no, look, I mean, paying a 2 for Jacoby Brissett is obviously ridiculous. But
paying anything,
I'll pay a 4 if I don't have.
I'll give you 5 fab.
Specific scenario.
And I also just said, Brian said we're not saying people should be thirsty, saying they are. I gotta tell you from experience, it is pulling teeth to get anything for a quarterback in any league that I'm in. I don't know where these leagues exist. I'm in a lot of them, but there's nobody sitting there like chomping at the bit to like pay a 4th for some quarterback, because the answer I always get back is like, I'll just play a receiver.
As soon as we get a couple weeks into the season, I mean, I don't know how many Josh Dobbs trades I made last year in both directions. It would have had to have been over 30 combined. Like the amount of times that I bought Josh Dobbs for 3, sold Josh Dobbs for 3, bought for 4, sold for 4, sold for 2. Like, just the sisterhood of the traveling Josh Dobbs last year was extreme. Gardner Minshew, Taylor Heineke, like moving all sorts of those guys. Also, Tyler, shout out Tyler. He said something sexually inappropriate as he usually does, which you gotta appreciate. And he also says to everybody to slam the like. So I agree with that.
That's right. Don't be a chat clogger. Slam the like button because we need it. We're going to talk more about this when we get on the other side of this break, because I didn't expect a quarterback tangent.
Well, I want to. Lucas talked about how difficult it is to define. I want to define roster clogger before we go to break.
Okay, define roster clogger. Well, yeah, we went too long on a rant. I got to be a company man.
We can do the break first if you want.
No, go ahead. No, I wouldn't want to interrupt. I wouldn't want to interrupt your train of thought in this next 20-minute long explanation. Floor is yours.
Right. Okay.
Son.
So thanks, Dad. So my thought is it's pretty simple. I think it's, can this player reasonably or contingently project to be in your starting lineup? And I think because of that, it's a little hard for me to consider most quarterbacks and running backs to be roster cloggers, because generally in Superflex Dynasty, almost any backup quarterback is one injury away from being in your Superflex spot. And at the running back position, we're always 1 or 2 injuries away from starting like truly heinous individuals. But at the wide receiver and tight end position, there are plenty of guys, who would fit this definition of just, there's not really any contingent upside with them because their main issue is lack of talent, not lack of routes. And they just don't reasonably project to get into your lineup. This is why, I go back to the Samaj AP line, which is basically the roster clogger line, which is like any wide receiver below this threshold, just grab whatever backup running back, any running back on a 53. I think the players that most commonly become roster cloggers are the guys that we were discussing, like Lucas before, which is the players we once had hopes for that were valued prospects who didn't work out, where we just don't feel like we can cut them, but you also know you're never going to play them. We're talking about Bateman, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore,
a lot of more.
Maybe I won't pronounce all of these guys roster cloggers, but it's heading this direction on your Wan'Dale Robinson, on your Jalen Hyatt, on your Quentin Johnston. Traylon Burks, Jahan Dotson. Like, it's just that these are the guys. Honestly, probably Jerry Jeudy. Like,
That's
we're
a
in
lot
this
of draft
world,
picks there. Oh gosh.
right? That's the thing where it's like, because they're literally clogging your roster. Like, you don't feel comfortable cutting them. That's the beauty of the shitty running back is, okay, I picked up Keontae Ingram. Oh, he got waived. Okay, I cut him. There's no mental conflict on that. But like, you'll be staring at the drop button on Rondale Moore just constantly, just unwilling to do it. Which that's the concern. So they're the ones clogging it up. Don't roster them. Simply do the 24-hour flash sale, taking the latest pick I can get, and then purge, and then they're done. Most of my teams outside of best ball leagues, I probably only have like 8 wide receivers total on the roster, maybe barring taxi squads, because if you're getting the better use of that Rondale Moore slot is just going to be literally any rookie, or like literally any backup in a contingency based position, running back and quarterback.
And I feel like if you're looking at a player and you're trying to determine whether or not they're a roster clogger or a sleeper, and they're that far down your bench and they're that far down ADP, you don't need to be committed to these players if they're coming up in trades. If you can throw one of them in to get a trade done, might as well. Like, I know though that a lot of times, especially for newer dynasty managers, whenever you invest a pick in someone, it is so tough to move off of that person.
Yeah.
For really anything. I know that was one of the biggest things I struggled with whenever I first started playing Dynasty is I made this pick. I said that this person's going to be good and I don't want to move off of them because what if they do eventually become good? Because as the saying, I think it's like, you're never wrong. You just have to wait until you're right. I know I butchered that, but that's fine.
You're never wrong, only early.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
I do think, though, that we need to normalize us as dynasty managers being willing to move past all of these different players. Like,
I think part of that comes from I know we talk about this a lot in terms of like willingness to roster X amount of players to a percentage for a portfolio. If you're in a lot of leagues, it becomes a lot easier to let these guys go. But I know that players who are not in a lot of leagues have a very hard time letting a lot of these favorites go. And then you get like one piece of news from one of your favorite analysts that say this player is definitely breaking out. And then you hold on to them. And then they have like one game early and you just hold on to that for another 8 weeks. And then, it's very easy to see the spiral for holding on to a player. It's very easy. You want to remember them in their best light. X player had 3 great games in 2021. And then you're like, yeah, but then these 35 things happened in between. And if he could just get past the next 5, he's going to really have an opportunity to break out. And that to me is the definition of a roster clogger, where a sleeper is just somebody that doesn't have a high probability of hitting, but man, is it possible? Kyren Williams for me is an example of this, where I was so adamant that Kyren Williams was a roster clogger, was never going to do anything, never could do anything, didn't want to roster him. He is a sleeper. He was a guy that, was, quote, slept on for most of the community, ended up paying off in a big way, where roster clogger is like, I don't know, Evan Hull to me, right? It's just the likelihood
I don't
of him
think Hull's
doing
a roster
anything.
clogger because all we need is 2
Trey
things
Sermon
to break,
and
he's in my lineup. I need him to beat out Trey Sermon, and I need Jonathan Taylor to get hurt. Those 2 things are, not super likely, but they're very possible.
Okay,
I would say it's more possible than Rondale Moore getting better at football.
Or Kenny Gainwell would then be an example. Evan Hull just popped up first when I went and looked.
I don't know if I think any running back is a roster clogger.
What's that?
I don't think I think any running back is a roster clogger.
Oh, you need help then. There's some guys that no matter what won't matter, bro. On their best day, they won't matter.
I don't know. I've seen some really bad running backs for 15 points.
Yeah, but you have to put them in on the week that they do that. We've seen guys like Madison.
Right, but the weeks
We've seen guys like Madison who are like, he's the backup. He's going to be really good. And then he gets his shot. And
Madison
then
was
he's
very good.
He's bad when he gets the opportunity.
Madison, when he was just the backup, was a top 24 running back like 80% of the weeks that Dalvin Cook missed. But then they said Madison can be the starter. Then he was terrible. But Madison, as the fill-in guy, was pretty reliable.
I don't know.
He had a couple dud weeks. But far more stud weeks. I remember looking into this last year.
Yeah, he had 4 really good games on that team in 2021. So maybe, and
pretty easy to predict because if Dalvin Cook is playing, then you're not playing Madison, and if Cook's not playing,
I don't know. I feel like he wasn't a lock-in start for a lot of those weeks either. But hey, I think you and I we have very different opinions on this that we will hit when we actually come back from this break, a break that we are taking 15 minutes late. Sorry, Trey, but don't worry. We're getting back on track as we come back out of the break because I want to continue this. Back out of the break. So very different definitions of what a roster clogger actually is. That's evident and that's clear. So then let's talk about some of these guys then, because clearly we have a different definition. Like, you don't think a running back can be a roster clogger. And I firmly believe that it gets to a point where you have to, if you're not playing in a best ball format, which in a best ball format, I've agreed with you for a long time on this, but in an actual start league, you have to put the right backup running back in that, and it's not always clear who the actual guy is going to be.
I think
it's just not.
I think in a best ball format is where I don't just want my bench to be a bunch of backup running backs. Cause like the problem with these backup running backs is that most of the time the starter is healthy and then they score 0 points. Whereas like DJ Chark Josh Reynolds, for instance, people don't want to hear it. Josh Reynolds is going to run like 65% of the routes on the Denver Broncos this year. He will probably at some point in the season have 2 to 3 weeks of above 10 points per game. Don't ask me to tell you when those are going to be. And there's not really going to be a meaningful change in the circumstances where we can predict them. So in a managed league, he is entirely useless to me and I would never roster him. In a best ball league, I would roster Josh Reynolds and just let him sit there and happen to wind up in my lineup by accident. Like, I would rather roster Josh Reynolds in that league, for instance, than say like, I don't know, Louis Reese-Zammit, like the random Chiefs rugby player who like will probably score 0 fantasy points this entire year.
Right.
But in a managed league, like, I don't know, give me the random rugby guy. And then like, if he gets cut, I'll just like cut him from my roster and pick up some other random guy. Like that's fine to me. Because there it is, more predictable. I mean, yeah, not perfectly. We'll always have AJ Dillon was a guy someone brought up in the chat. That was a great example of a backup who got inserted into the starting role and was still like not at all worth starting.
Terrible.
There are certainly guys like that, but just from like a projection standpoint, like a lot of these backup running backs, it is more binary where they either project for basically nothing, or you walk into your DFS projection app Sunday morning and they project like 3 points worse than actual every week starters with the variance style turned up a little bit, and it's more predictable. So I push back on the best ball thing. I think best ball, you want just guys that have like projectable roles all the time, even if those roles suck, because just the natural variance, sometimes you'll catch the right side of the standard deviation. Whereas in standard scoring, like all you care about is like, what is the median projection? And so someone who has a median projection of 2, 14 weeks and 13, 3 weeks is worth rostering.
Oh man. I don't know. Like, you said a lot of good things, but then my brain just wants to go to this backup running back. It better have a phenomenal matchup for it to matter. I know Bendo's mentioned like Madison used to kill the Lions and Seahawks ass defenses. Yeah, those are games that you probably want to target that guy. I just think that most backup running backs are irrelevant when they actually get in and get to play. And there are also a lot of situations where that running back gets hurt for that game. Now that player, this is the difference between best ball and a regular stardom lineup type league. You get that player for the game, and then the next week, now that backfield is just like a rotational split until back A is healthy 100%, and you don't actually get that usage, so you start the backup, and then he doesn't even get a full snap share. I think there are just specific backups, again, that we can like knowingly target. I think these guys like Kenneth Gainwell, like we know he's not going to be a thing.
I think that you're overestimating how good you have to be. So I recently did this piece, and this is like not a article that I intended for this purpose, but I think it is now
Charbonnet's, yeah.
Where I went through and I picked out the any player who scored 25 plus half PPR points during the best ball playoffs since Best Ball Mania was launched. So this is like obviously a way higher standard than you just needing to start them in your lineup. We're talking about massive like league defining spike weeks.
Yeah.
But listen to the wide receivers who went and qualified for this. At some point, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Evans again, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. If I go all the way down, the only one who I put in this bucket of like basically a random guy or late round picks, KJ Osborne did it. That was completely random and like a total guy that you probably never would have started that week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other ones were guys like Zay Jones, who had become kind of a weekly starter by the end of that year in 2023. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who obviously had become a weekly starter by the end of his rookie year. Listen to some of the running backs who did. There's a bunch of studs. I won't name all the studs, similar amount of names as wide receivers. Here's some of the dudes who've done, this is an insane performance. This is 25 plus half PPR points just in a playoff week. Rashad Penny, Myles Gaskin, Jerome Ford, Duke Johnson, Rex Burkhead, Justin Jackson, Samaje Perine, was old school Tony Pollard, Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon. Even AJ Dillon, the guy we just said was unplayable, has actually done that. Like, you're telling me Rex Burkhead is like a higher tier of talent than some of these dweebs? Like, I don't know, man. Like, there are some shitty ass running backs that have put up some big weeks. Like, Justin Jackson was the most important running back in all of fantasy football in the semifinals of 2021. And then, like, that was like his last NFL game. Like, he was just no longer in the league. He scored like 35 points, said, I'm out of here. And shout out Justin Jackson, a legendary poster and a true socialist icon. But, like, not good at football. just happened to do it.
He was the Jacob Sanderson favorite.
Yeah, of course.
For quite a while. I think look, I get your point. I would like to know what the actual, like, starter percentage were for those games. Like, how many people actually put them in over some vet or guy that they had already had, right? That's what I really want to break down, because it is
Justin Jackson in the Big Billy Invitational.
I know you did. I'm just saying
finals that week.
I think it's like, yeah, well, that backup running back really played well. Obviously everyone played him. I don't think that that's the case, but if you're just talking about pure opportunity, okay, I can get that. But I still think it gets to a point where these running backs are indeed just not worthy of rostering.
Well, it goes to how you build your team, because you're
like, look what Scott, right? We had Scott on the pod what a year ago.
Yeah.
And we had the great debate that show led us to doing this show here. If we're really being honest, it was the great debate between, do we want to roster nothing but wide receivers, or this is the creation of the P line, right? Like, this is really the difference in building, like you said.
It goes to how you want to build your team, I think, is the big thing. Like, you want to look at what the replacement level is of your team. If you are building teams like Scott and you have legitimate bell cow running backs on your team, and especially if you have like 3 or 4 of them, then you're right. Then there is no place for these running backs to wind up in your lineup, because if you have Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and I don't know, Ken Walker and Joe Mixon, whatever else. Like if you have just a bunch of actual running backs, then like then you're right. It doesn't matter if you're rostering Chris Rodriguez and it's week 14 and Brian Robinson's on the IR and Eckler's only playing third down snaps. Like, okay, am I playing Chris Rodriguez ahead of Joe Mixon, Breece Hall, or Ken Walker? I'm probably not. So then it's irrelevant that he's getting that advantage for you. But if you've built your team in other ways where all of your capital is being allocated out to quarterback, to tight end, to wide receiver, like then you've left yourself kind of openings, which is just usually how I like. Usually those running backs are my luxury pieces. Like unless I'm able to have the value where I'm building a super team, I'm just leaving RB2 open effectively, knowing like at some point in time, I'm going to be sitting there on Sunday morning choosing one of Deonta Foreman or Gus Edwards for this spot for the 5th year in a row. Like that's going to be what's going to be happening.
That's just such a wild choice to also be sitting with. But I mean, hey, it sounds like it's been working.
Every year it is that choice, dude. Like I've always had so much of those two dudes, and they do the same thing every year, which is they're free. And then they like project for 11 points per game starting like in week 8. And then I'm like, which one am I going to pick this week? Like, and it's the same bet. It's like, which one's going to find the freaking end zone?
And I think that's also like, that's a really important thing that you've been bringing up is maybe that's just another way that we should really be rostering our teams is you don't need to be worrying about who you're going to be shuffling in at wide receiver. Like take advantage of being able to spend all of these luxury picks higher up on, your top tier wide receivers. Cause we say that's so flat between like wide receiver 12 through almost wide receiver 36. A lot of the wide receivers just being the same. Load up there, get the elite wide receiver, fill those up, and then start getting all these back end running backs. Thomas and I were talking before the show, like once you get into round 9, the price that you're paying for the running back starting there really isn't bad. And I don't know if there's another bad running back the rest of the draft after that in terms of what you're having to actually pay. And back to like kind of, the overarching thing that we've been talking about on the show, ADP beaters versus sleepers. I think that there's a lot of ADP beaters right there, but that's also where you get all these fun sleepers in. Thomas, you're looking on judgingly. So now
I just think there's so much hope for these ass running backs, like just so much, and so few of them actually end up mattering that I just would rather take shots on rookie wide receivers, these late round. I'd rather take shots on late round tight ends than a lot of these super ass running backs. Like I would rather roster Sam Darnold over Ken Walker. That's not because I'm a Sam Darnold truther who remembers his QB1 opportunity.
Wait, did you say you'd rather roster Sam Darnold over Ken Walker?
I meant Kenneth Gainwell. Let's relax.
Okay.
Let's relax.
Okay.
I was like, look, I know you like Sam Darnold. That's a little aggressive.
It's been a long day. Okay. But Sam Darnold has more league winning weeks than Ken Walker has in his career. So, I mean, take that for what you will. But like, anyway, like I'd rather roster Tyler Conklin, right? Like I would rather even roster Jacob's boy, Greg Dulcich, who I generally don't like, Noah Fant, Hunter Henry, Taysom Hill, Jared Wiley. Like these are just guys I would rather roster over any of these running backs personally, because they're opportunity needy players that actually have a chance to gain value, where again, I just don't think these running backs do. So I think this is just going to be a philosophical difference here. I don't want the Gainwells and these just Evan Hulls, and yeah, I just don't want, like, even gets to a point where guys like Deuce Vaughn, Eric Gray, Donta Foreman, like I just no thank you, right? Like not for me. It's not for me. Bindle says Foreman live for 2 20-point games per season. Yeah. That is a player you never have to convince me to roster, because I have been a Foreman guy since before he blew his legs out in college. Loved that guy, and I'm big on him.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry, go ahead.
never mind. Sorry, I thought you were wrapping up, but then I cut you off rudely.
Yes. Well, I mean, that does tend to happen. Do you have, I know we did talk about whether or not we're going to have some players that we liked as sleepers or ADP beaters. I think the actual philosophical portion of this went a little longer than I actually had anticipated. And for everyone,
tops on beater and sleeper.
So for
get to the game,
I was going to say, for the people wondering, yes, we are playing 5 for 5, as I mentioned, if you're tuning in late. And remember that if you haven't already, we desperately need you to hit that subscribe button and that like button. When this video is over, we need you to go leave a comment down on the video, not just in the chat. You're all wonderful for the chat. Drop a comment on the video itself. It helps us out quite a lot. Bindle says 3-leg Greg, certified sleeper.
I was going to be
Ray Davis, sleeper. Alex wants to know, but what is the utility or upside of those ass tight ends? You're not rostering the RBs for upside or value. It's the opportunity. Tight end, to me, and in my experience, the upside to rostering those guys is I have always found it easier to move a tight end than a running back when their production starts to outweigh what their cost was. You're talking about people being needy for quarterbacks. People are very needy for tight ends. And if any of these young, not saying that Hunter Henry is like, let's say young, because he's not. But in my experience playing the game, I have had an easier time stacking value off late round tight ends and quarterbacks than I ever have for running back.
Yeah, tight end is a good place to look for random darts because, it goes back to like
look at Greg Dulcich. Greg Dulcich had like 5 games.
Running back, we have a reasonable ability to project volume, and then to change, and then that projection becomes very volatile when there's injuries, which is the appeal. Wide receiver is the hardest because the projection depends the most on talent, and we have, beyond like rookies. Like when I'm saying don't roster these guys, I'm not applying this to rookies. Like by all means, take a stab on like a Johnny Wilson or whatever for your last roster spot, a guy we don't know anything about. But once we actually have a sample on these wide receivers, we kind of know that it doesn't really matter what happens around them. They just aren't good, and they aren't going to be startable. Tight end, just like random ass dudes, kind of happen all the time. It's just like there's a great way to use your last few roster spots is on Eric All, Theo Johnson. I mean, I don't know. We were talking about Jelani Woods, and like, sure, why not? Like if you just tack on like 3 total dart throw athletic tight ends, that's a totally reasonable thing to do, and they'll probably be nothing, but sometimes they just come out of there and all of a sudden it's like Jake Ferguson was like a guy who wasn't rostered like
big
3
Jake
years
Ferguson
ago,
guy here,
and like then now he becomes a guy that has legitimate value. Like Logan Thomas started off as a guy who was total waiver wire fodder. Darren Waller was once upon a time total waiver wire fodder. Like tight ends pretty often have runs. Those are usually guys you want to get off once they actually pop. They're not necessarily guys that stick around, but it's not at all uncommon for tight ends to be mid tight end ones for like a year or two, who were previously on waivers.
Yeah, Dulcich had a very short run, right, in his first year, and Jacob, you vaulted him all the way up.
I'd pick him up again. I mean, like I like them, but like
I'm just saying it happens.
He's been injured, and I mean, I was gonna bring him up as a guy that I think everyone should go get on their team now. Like he's
Isaiah Likely, another one.
There's no one else there in Denver. Like it's just the same group of random guys. It's like Troutman and Kroll. Their wide receivers suck. Like, is Dulcich probably going to be anything after like missing an entire season with 2 different hamstring injuries? Like probably not. That tends to stunt a career, but for the cost of nothing, I would certainly put him on my roster. It's an athletic guy. He's shown some production. There's opportunity there.
Well, with that, let's talk about some players that we do or don't think are fantasy sleepers / fantasy ADP beaters, and whether we do or don't want to roster them. I have a couple of players here that I'm gonna rattle off that are hot.
Go for it.
They're very hot in the.
Well, let's just do this. Yeah,
Twitter.
You just rattle them off, and me and we'll say which one we think. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking, because
ADP beater,
again,
roster clogger or sleeper.
Right. And are we believing or not? Right. That's a two-parter to this, because
Sure.
that portion, I cannot speak today. It has been a long day. I'm going to get it together here as we go before the game here. All right. We're going to test the Twitter industrial complex and the fantasy content creator industrial complex on this. I'm obviously going to kick it off with like the most polarizing figure in the Dynasty community with Jameson Williams. He has been touted as an absolute breakout must-have. This is the year. Do we believe or do we not believe that he is is he a roster clogger? Is he a sleeper? Is he an absolutely no way?
I mean, he's not a roster clogger because like I wouldn't literally cut him. Like if someone like I would certainly roster him at a price. So I don't think he's a roster clogger, but I think he is just going to be a bust. I think the most likely scenario is we're sitting here next year, and I am saying he's a roster clogger that you can cut.
You know what? I'm going to be hopeful. I'm going to say sleeper. He is one of the players that I originally wrote down as, especially a wide receiver 48. Yeah, give me that all day. I'm going to take flyers there on somebody like that. Like that's the profile I really like there. But I'm also on forever rebuilding teams. So yeah, that's a perfect player for my forever rebuilding teams.
So players going right after him include Keenan Allen. I'll take absolutely. I'll take Polk. I'll take Downs. I'll take Franklin. I'll take maybe not Roman Wilson. Maybe Roman Wilson. Probably rather have Hopkins on certain teams in deep formats. I'd rather have Burton. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna say that he beats his ADP this year, but is also not a fantasy sleeper.
So we got all three, I think, pretty much. Well, we didn't ever say roster clogger. That's for next season.
He's too high value to be a clogger. Like if he was like wide receiver 80, I'd probably even label him a buy. But
right. I think he'll be good enough to kind of beat this ADP because I feel like there's just some other receivers. I mean, it's going to be actually like AD Mitchell. I think he'll beat AD Mitchell. Leggett.
His best ball ADP is like not cheap. So there's seasonal expectations for Jameson. He's going
right, but that's where I said he's not a sleeper because the people that have him believe like he's breaking out. For me, his breakout is like Gabe Davis is probably his peak. Like that is to me what he will max out as a player. I don't think he'll get beyond that, but that would also beat his ADP. So that's why I'm going to say I believe he'll beat his ADP. He's not really technically a sleeper. I just think he's just going to be overpriced by the end of this year. I'll put it to you that way. I don't have an issue with his cost right now. I'll just put that out in the air. All right. That's one. What is it? What's another one? Let's go Quentin Johnston.
Cut him. Roster
Clogger, sleeper, ADP beater.
Okay, don't literally cut him because there's some weirdos out there who will actually give you something for it, but like take literally anything.
I'm going to say ADP beater, not a true sleeper.
You're actually giving him like you think he's going to be worth. I don't know. I think this is one of those cases where I think the running backs will actually outdo him. Yeah, I would trade him for whatever I possibly could. I don't think there's any hope. I think it's over. I think it's so over for Quentin Johnston.
Take out the plunger.
I think next year there's a very real chance he's like down in Wan'Dale Robinson territory. At the ADP beater, if they use him right, this is between the two. This is still a Greg Roman led offense, guys. Like, and there's just other receivers that are better.
Greg Roman is the least of his problems. He can't play football. He could be on the Kansas City Chiefs, and all of the rest of the wide receivers could contract polio, and I still don't think he would have 100 yards. The worst
in a game or for the season.
In a game, it's
okay. I needed to know how extreme
if he is the only wide receiver and they run 13 personnel for the entire year, and Patrick Mahomes plays every game, I think he could get 100 yards for the season. I think that he has that within him. I think I might be able to too, but
oh no. Okay.
Lucas,
Lucas, you had some play. Nah, not now, man. You've seen me lately. There's no hope in these streets. I need to slim down to playing weight and have knees that aren't broken. But Lucas, you had some players here. Hit me with a few.
All right. Dontayvion Wicks, wide receiver, 64.
You can't call Dontayvion Wicks a sleeper when he's probably like the most mentioned player on Twitter
Well,
in 2024.
That's why we're testing the industrial complex. Sleeper, ADP beater, overrated, we can say, instead of roster clogger, because we know. Right?
I love Wicks though. That cost is he doesn't go wide receiver 64
nice.
in my drafts, that's for sure.
Trade him for a backup running back. Yeah, I would trade Quentin Johnston for like anyone. Literally anyone. I'm in on Wicks. I mean, I think his price is great. I think his price is great.
Right.
I'll say I'm in.
Moving on, Marvin Mims, wide receiver, 73.
Dead. Get him off my roster. See ya.
Oh, okay. So I'm still holding off some hope just because of how open the target competition I think is there.
Yeah.
So fair enough, though. Like I have no issue throwing him in trades, but fair enough. All right, going a little bit deeper here. Tight end 40, Daniel Bellinger.
He's literally.
I'll keep him.
Giants have realized he's a roster clogger on their NFL franchise. And
No. You see, you quote tweet one report from a dude that said he doesn't think he makes it through
laps
camp.
on Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah,
and then a report comes out that he's not going to make the team. You're damn right.
by one guy. I've seen other reports, sir. All right, we have conflicting reports here.
First team snaps with some guy named Lawrence Cager.
Yeah, because it was quote to help them develop mentally, because they already know that Bellinger knows what he's doing. Like let's read into the weeds here, Jacob.
All
God.
Right. To end on something more positive, I think there will be a unanimous statement here. Jaleel McLaughlin, running back, 61.
Oh yeah, we're liking that.
So I mean, sleeper, I like him, but I do have some fears that he actually might be the rare roster clogging running back where he might just have a role. Like he might just have a 25% snap satellite role.
Is this just because
and he doesn't get any contingent value? That's possible. But
is this because you're so backed into liking Javonte Williams that you can't see the possibility that McLaughlin is just better?
I don't think it matters if he's better. Like he's 180 pounds and he doesn't pass protect. Like I mean, we know with Peyton backfields, it's going to be some form of committee. He's always run some form of committee. That's fine because
Darren Sproles, bro.
Right. That might be the role. But it doesn't matter that he has committee because he has such ridiculously high XFP for running backs that we usually end up liking multiple running backs in his offense. I'm in on every Denver running back. I'm probably my concern is this is transitioning to my sleeper, which is Estime. I don't fully buy this Javonte FUD. Like I'm gonna be more Javonte interested than certainly than Tom and then a lot of people, but it's totally possible that is real. If the Javonte FUD is legit, I think a lot of people are going to McLaughlin, and I just don't really see that as being as connected. To me, McLaughlin has a role in this offense. He's going to be a situational utility player. It's going to be the Darren Sproles, the Pierre Thomas, like that kind of role.
Right.
And then I think what happens on the early downs and the goal line situations, I think exists outside of him. And if Javonte is losing ground on that side of the aisle, I think that goes to Estime. So I think I'm interested in every running back in a Sean Payton backfield at all times. So I'm in on all of them. I'm in on including Blake Watson. Right. We're right on all four. But I think Estime is the way where I would play it, where I think you're getting a lot of negative Javonte headlines, but I think most of the price boost is going to McLaughlin, and I think that Estime is the one who actually benefits the most from it.
There's actually been a bit of a curve here at Fantasy Points behind the scenes in the projection meetings for the Broncos, where it's actually kind of turning a little bit pro Javonte. I'm still not. I think his price is still kind of wild and what his upside would be, but there are some positive reports starting to swing by. So no, I think you're right. I think sleeper for McLaughlin is the right call. I'm not going to be overly bullish, let's say.
All right.
For what it's worth, this being the Dynasty show, like I tweet a lot about Javonte. I'm like fine with his Dynasty price. Where I'm drafting a lot of him is in the best ball streets where he's just like a lot cheaper. So,
right now he's going right in between Amari Cooper and Christian Kirk, and I'd rather have both those wide receivers.
Yeah, and he's around 10 pick right now in best ball. He goes behind guys like Devin Singletary.
See that?
It's a very different price point. So I don't have an issue with his Dynasty price. I'm like not against it, but I'm not really slamming it either. But it's best ball where I consider him a really
right. And per Mar 99 says
that's probably where I want to play it through in Dynasty.
Per Mar 99 says Estime is the number 4 ADP faller the last 2 weeks. Yeah, again, positive reports about McLaughlin is kind of why I feel like is driving that up. And then Brandon Kraft says JMO will not break out until he's traded. He's not part of the game plan in Detroit. I think part of that is because he lacks kind of some of the things he needs to be able to do for the position he plays, which is play wide receiver. I think that's kind of what's made him not part of the plan. But I think in terms of like him breaking out and what he would need to have, I just think more skill at the position is probably, he's got speed for days, but speed doesn't always mean you can play a good wide receiver. For a true breakout anyway. But for him, I think Gabe Davis would be like an actual breakout for him, honestly, with what he's dealt with at this point. I feel like in that case, breakout needs to just be kind of talked about a little bit differently. Breakout doesn't necessarily mean he's got to be like wide receiver 10. You know what I mean? All right, Lucas, last player.
All right, last player. I'm going to do another wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed.
No.
Wide receiver 67.
No.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm looking on Twitter right now, I see a lot of people might just be the best ball drafts that are getting people
It's just
excited.
Scott Barrett. It's only Scott. It's only Scott. Like, it's only Scott. Like, it's Scott. He was on the show and he tried to fake argue Shaheed versus Olave, and then Shaheed went out and was like, Shaheed best ball only, better in best ball, right? Don't care in Dynasty. Like, you're not playing that guy. He's a fake player. You're not playing that guy. If you're playing Shaheed, it just you need like a 50-point swing to have a chance to win the game, and it's just likely it's not happening. We shit on Derek Carr for not being able to throw deep and stuff all the time, and it's like, well, Shaheed's really no. I can't. New OC is gonna matter. Not enough for me to care. No, his quarterback is still the same. I don't care. I do not care.
I will say Rashid Shaheed is somebody that I can't say that he's a roster clogger at this point. It's going to take
12. I think if you're in a start 12, you're already lost. But I don't care. I do not care.
I'm kind of surprised about how anti Rashid Shaheed you all are, at least in terms of this.
We were begging.
That one does. It surprises me.
The Dynasty community was begging for Jameis Winston to get into games so we could get like elite upside Chris Olave on the field. And we didn't get it. And we were all very sad.
Okay. Yeah, just kind of surprised because I'm also hearing roster clogger, meaning that you're okay with cutting them.
Yeah, maybe I'm more than okay.
I mean, I guess well, I'm not going to literally cut him, but like, I don't know, sell for whatever you can. Spiritually, he's a roster clogger. I have no interest in his services.
All right, fair enough. That is my last player.
But I did just want to point out, like we were begging before I had to deal with the cat climbing somewhere it wasn't supposed to. We were begging last year for like, oh, Jameis Winston could get in and really unlock the wide receivers in this offense. So even if he was upper tier in deep balls last year, it didn't matter. So like people got excited because Spencer Rattler got drafted to New Orleans because he has the arm. Like he's got an arm that can let the ball go downfield. That's what we were excited about. It's not Carr. It's just not Shaheed. No, that offense is just so weird.
I will say that's a different scouting report than I've seen on Spencer Rattler.
It just, again, it was the Twitter industrial complex, right? I'm not talking about like me specifically or on this program, but it was out there. It's been out there. All right, that's it. We're done. we're getting into game time. We're gonna be right back. I'm gonna do one read, and then we're hitting it. All right, let's sit tight. Okay, look, you dominate your home, office, and family leagues every year, and now it is time to take it to the next level, and the next level is FFPC. It is the place to play high-stakes fantasy football this summer. No salary caps, no DFS, no new formats to learn, just pure drafting fun that you've always loved. FFPC is home to multiple $1 million grand prizes, massive best ball tournaments, competitive dynasty leagues, and a multitude of exclusive formats you cannot get anywhere else. Drafts are filling every single day at myffpc.com. Begin your pursuit of millions today at myffpc.com. Jacob, I know you play in FFPC leagues every year. I know you team up with at Cam's Not Sober on a regular basis. How you guys decide on any players together is well beyond me. But to say the least, it is always entertaining. I'll be tapping into FFPC for the first time in my fantasy football life this year. So I'm looking forward to that. Head over to myffpc.com. Okay, this is 5 for 5. This is the best game on the fantasy football planet. Like, this is it, and I've had a lot of fun with it because I've been winning it. I've really been able to flex my useless knowledge. So let's, all those things that my adopted parents used to say would never matter. Guess what? They matter now. So let's talk about it. Let's run through the rules real quick and then dive in.
All right, so every week I host and I pick 5 players, all play fantasy eligible positions. So quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends. Shout out to the IDP bros.
Yeah, not on this show.
Each of the 5 players all shares one thing in common every week. There's some sort of unifying theme to the proceedings. Beyond that, they each get 5 clues. The earlier you guess, the more points you get. You guess after 1 clue, 5 points. 2 clues, 4 points, etc. Down to 1 point. If someone buzzes in and they get it wrong, the other person can either have a free guess or they can preserve the right to guess first in the next round. At the end of all 5 rounds, whoever has the most points wins. So far, Tom is in the lead with 1.5 victories. Derek Brown has 1 victory.
No, we're giving me my 2.
0.5 victories. Meatwad gets a 0.5 for his incredible showing last week.
It's true.
Getting our first clue.
I reached out to him too to get him in the Discord to get him on here for this, and we haven't gotten there yet. So Meatwad, you gotta holler.
All right. So if you are in the chat and you want to play along, feel free. All I ask is that you don't Google anything.
Right.
If you want to play along, you want to guess, feel free
honor
to guess,
system.
but please don't spoil. So we'll trust you in the honor system. If you don't want to guess, you want to, maybe give away clues, do whatever you want. The guys could either look at the chat. They don't have to look at the chat. We'll let that go as it goes. All right. Today, all of these players, their last name is also a noun. Okay. So these are players whose last name is a word that's a person, place, or thing. It's something that we use already in the common English language, aside from as their name. Okay, does that make sense?
Wow.
So for instance, like their last name could be something like Book or King or etc.
Right.
Not going to be like Porzingis. Okay. All right.
Okay.
First player, first clue. Unable to academically qualify for a 4-year university. This player only played college football at Itawamba Community College.
I'm already going to pass. This sounds like a player from 1955. Like, this is some buffoonery. I'm already going to pass.
All right, I'm going to try buzzing here. We'll see.
Okay.
Tyreek Hill.
That is incorrect. But good try. I love the aggression.
Yeah,
right.
nah. I screwed
This
up
means
on
Tom gets to guess first on the second clue. Okay. After 2 years at Itawamba Community College, he still could not academically qualify and spent the next 2 years out of football entirely, learning how to play the position by renting out a Jerry Rice highlights video from Blockbuster.
Oh my god, this isn't
I'm just
older.
gonna say, like,
this
I
is an
didn't
older wide
expect anyone to
receiver.
get it on these first two clues, but it's the coolest Wikipedia page of any notable NFL player ever.
Notable NFL player, couldn't academically get in, had to learn it by Jerry Rice videos at Blockbuster. This has got to be some guy in the 90s. I get a free guess here, basically.
You get a free
Anyway,
guess. Yeah.
Gotta be an-
Yeah.
so I'll say I don't know. Let's go Rod Smith.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Although pretty good guess considering undrafted player. So,
Yeah, I had to take a shot.
yeah. Lucas, you got anything here?
Nope. Don't have anything. I think
All
that's
right.
a pretty good guess, though.
Okay.
I thought
This
I tried to
player's
think
first
about,
experience in
Yeah.
professional football produced 71 catches and 1,455 yards for the Memphis Mad Dogs of the CFL, where he was eventually recruited to the Kansas City Chiefs.
is it Dante Hall?
There's not Dante
No.
Hall.
I couldn't remember if you
Lucas,
played in the
free
CFL
guess,
or not.
or you can preserve first guess next round.
I'm going to preserve.
All right. This player's son was a recent 8th overall pick in the NFL draft.
Recent 8th overall pick.
Yes.
Oh, dang.
His son was a recent 8th overall pick in the NFL draft. His dad played in the CFL. That's
The
brutal,
Memphis Mad
dude.
Dogs, during the very small period of time in which the CFL had American teams.
Hey, shout out to Baltimore, who won the last
Yeah.
championship for American CFL teams with Anthony Calvillo at quarterback.
There you go.
I don't know.
So
Wow.
we gotta ask whose dad played wide receiver and who got drafted to the Falcons. It's what we have to ask because they've had the 8th pick forever. I see Penix in there.
5 seconds left for a
nah.
guess. Otherwise, we're going to the last clue.
Last clue. Give me the last clue. This is
right.
insane, these questions.
Okay. Despite over 8,000 NFL career receiving yards, this player might be most known for the use of a cell phone in a touchdown celebration on Sunday Night Football.
Oh, Jace. It's Joe Horn.
That's correct. Joe Horn for 1 point.
They say it's Jace Horn, but I was like, that's the son that was drafted. Yeah.
Yeah. JC
I did not
Horn.
know
Yeah.
Joe Horn played in the CFL. That's
Oh my
really
gosh.
cool.
I had no
Wow,
idea.
that
until I
took-
looked it up.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that they wouldn't play wide receiver. That
Yeah.
son would play wide
Yeah.
receiver. Dang, that's a good
Got
one.
it. That is really good. I really thought I had
that
a
is
shot
none
with
of
Ross
this about
Smith
Joe
there.
Horn. I just have always loved Joe Horn, and I thought he was cool. And
Yeah, he
then
was
when
really
I came
fun.
up with this idea of like names as a noun, he was the first name that I thought of.
He was a horn.
And then when I read his Wikipedia page, I was like, wow, this guy led a fucking life. Like, this is sick.
That's
How did this guy make it to the NFL?
nuts.
That's
Almost
so cool.
9,000 career receiving yards. He was part
Yeah.
of really fun teams like the Marcus Colston Saints teams. Like just a lot of
He
fun.
was on those Aaron Brooks New Orleans Saints teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
That's a good one.
All right.
Okay,
Oh,
got it there. Got
1-0
it.
for Tom. Okay, this player was picked 222nd overall
Oh my god.
after starting for the Indiana Hoosiers throughout his college career.
Oh my god. No, I'm not gonna know that. I'll hard pass that. That's insane. I thought the Hoosiers are a basketball school.
Well, they're much better at basketball, but that's why he was drafted 222nd overall.
Yeah, I'm going to hold on to my pick here.
All right. Okay. This player did not throw his first NFL pass until 4 years after being drafted and did so for the St. Louis Rams, which already narrows down our
Kurt Warner?
That is incorrect.
Oh, I thought he went to an obscure school like that too. Chat,
So
what school did Kurt Warner go to?
Three guess or preserve.
I don't got it right now. Wow.
All right. Okay.
The Rams.
No worries. By the way, Kurt Warner went to Northern Iowa.
That's so close, dude, for obscure out of nowhere schools.
Okay.
Oh my God.
This player was traded for a first-round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs to be their 2001 starting quarterback. Lucas, you get to guess first here since Tom guessed wrong last round.
I'm really concerned because he knows it. Yeah, I know
you better
he
get it
knows
right
it.
here.
Yeah. Oh my
Otherwise,
gosh. I gotta
3
think.
points for
I gotta think.
Thomas.
I gotta think. Oh gosh. 2001.
He's got to have a time limit.
Oh, okay. I'm going to rely on the chat here.
Bullshit. This is ass. He just waited. He just sat here waiting until the fucking chat.
And
I'm going to say Trent Green. Yeah,
that is correct.
Wow.
Ass.
I'll give you. I will give you 2 points, and I'm giving 1 to the chat. I'm docking.
Yeah, that's
a point.
That's
for the
fine.
chat assist.
Wow.
All right, 2
Ass.
points for Lucas.
Wow. I didn't
Ass.
realize it took him
Thomas.
that long to
1 for the
throw his
chat.
first pass in the NFL.
He also played in the CFL, by the way.
Wow.
Brutal. I'm never guessing first now. This is just what it comes down
Yeah.
to. This is
right.
ass.
It is. Yeah, the Kurt Warner thing was. That's the first time that a player has been named who is going to be named in a subsequent clue, because fifth clue, of course, was going to be. Despite his own humble beginnings in the NFL, this player was famously injured, bringing about an even more unlikely Cinderella quarterback story. All right, third player, 2-1 for the chat here. Okay, this player had more carries in each of his first 3 NFL seasons than he ever had in a single season in college at LSU.
He had more carries in his first 3 years than he ever had in college.
Yeah. I will remind you both, by the way, since the guesses have not necessarily adhered to this, that there is the noun theme for all of these.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's that one's hard to remember.
Well, that's why I'm giving the reminder.
Yeah.
I'm here to help.
More carries than he ever had at LSU. Who are some running backs that came at LSU? I mean, there can't be that many.
And didn't touch the ball much.
Didn't touch the ball much. I can't get past how mad I am that I got cheesed on Trent Green.
I don't think that this really fits, but I'm going to say Jacob Hester. Just being absolutely random here.
All right, that is incorrect.
Yeah. I know LSU, I was like, ooh, maybe with the carries there, but
and it's a noun too.
There's a noun.
I will pass. It's not Lamar
All
Jackson, Depeche. Get out of here.
All right. Despite playing 5 seasons in the NFL, this player only had 1 season above 4 yards per carry.
Okay, from LSU. I get first crack here. A noun. That's like, now that's where my brain is. He only spent
A shitty noun running back.
for a shitty noun running back. I don't know. I will pass. I'm so mad about Trent Green.
All right.
all right, I got a pass here too.
Well, you don't even get the guess because Tom locked you out by passing. But now you can. But either one of you can guess first next round. This player didn't do a lot in his NFL career, but he did leap into our hearts with a 31 carry, 139 yard, and touchdown performance in the fantasy playoffs of 2015.
A 2015 icon.
It's
Jeremy
I promise
Hill.
you, I didn't add this crappy player to the clues to prove Tom wrong about rostering bad running backs, but
Oh,
he is
God.
a good case study for this. It is not Jeremy Hill. Lucas?
That's got to be it because that's a noun too. So
That is a good guess. That is a very good guess.
Oh my
LSU,
gosh, that's such a
city,
good
and
guess.
a noun. That's an incredibly good guess. I'm going
Wow.
to give you a 0.5 for that. I'm going to give you a 0.5.
Oh,
that was
wow.
really good.
Direction.
'Cause I remember he was like I knew I loved him in Madden. So
Yeah, that gets you
Oh.
0.5. That was like incredibly good guess.
All right, I'm going to have to pass again. This is tough.
Okay,
Wow.
so you're guaranteed first guess here on the next one. While never a starter, this player did play all 5 years of his NFL career with the Houston Texans.
Is it Alfred Blue?
Alfred Blue is correct for 2
wow.
points.
this is so ass. Yeah, he was.
Lucas,
He was a
you would have
fantasy
really
goat.
appreciated the last clue, which was this player shares each of his names with a famous Batman character and a recent top running back recruit of the University of Texas.
Very nice. Very nice. Alfred Blue. Wow. I didn't realize he was from LSU. Okay.
All right, so that is 3 points for Lucas.
I didn't know he was from LSU
4 points
either.
for Lucas. 4 points for Lucas. 1.5 for Tom, and 1 for the chat.
This is such ass.
All right, we have 2 players left. This player was the 48th overall pick in the draft out of Michigan State University.
48th overall player.
Honestly,
Kenneth
Michigan.
Walker.
Incorrect.
I was actually legitimately concerned there for a minute.
He
the
was 48th. If he was 48th, I'll give you the points.
I know he's second, but oh.
If he was literally 48th, I will give you half the points. He was 41st.
Oh my gosh. So close. All right.
Yeah.
Out of
Dang.
Michigan State, I will pass.
All right. You get okay.
And the
player's
noun too.
last-
That was a good guess.
I know. It was a good guess. Okay, I'll give you the same 0.5 as Jeremy Hill. That was about as
No,
about the same,
don't.
same
He
level.
doesn't need the help. He already got the assist for Trent Green. Stop making this fugazi
Yeah, I already
shit
took away a
up.
point for that. All right. Okay, this player's last NFL touchdown was scored for the Baltimore Ravens in 2021.
His last NFL touchdown?
Yeah.
84th overall, 2001.
48th overall.
48th overall from Michigan State. Who was on that 2001 championship team that did not score a lot of touchdowns?
No, sorry, 2021.
Oh, 2021. Oh. Then I should know who this is. And it's completely blanking out of me. They had so many just random like no-name wide receivers. I'm not gonna remember this, so I'm gonna pass for now, but I'm ashamed that I don't know.
All right, that blocks out Lucas. You both can guess first in the next round. This player struggled in his rookie season, but reportedly lost 20 pounds, leading to a year 2 breakout.
Ooh. All right. I'm going to guess Le'Veon Bell.
That is correct. 3 points for Lucas. That brings it 7.5.
It's over.
To 1.5.
It's over.
1. Bell, that was the 2021 season where the Ravens
Yeah.
had all the preseason injuries and
Kenyon
they ran
Drake.
out Freeman and Tyson Williams and Kenyon
Drake
Drake
and
Le'Veon Bell and just a bunch of random dudes.
I forgot
Shout
Bell
out
went to
Brian
Michigan
Ford,
State.
by the way. Brian Ford got that on, I believe, the first clue, at least the second clue. So that brings us to 7.5 for Lucas. It brings us to 6 for the chat, 1.5 for Tom. Luckily,
Crown's going down.
we double the points for the last
Oh,
one.
right.
So-
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So Tom still has a chance here.
Yeah.
Tom, in order to tie, you need to get this on clue 3.
Okay.
In order to win, you need to get this on clue 2. Lucas, obviously, you just need Tom not to get it by clue 3.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. This player was named to the freshman All-American team of the SEC as a quarterback.
So the all SEC freshman team or all American freshman team and
All SEC freshman team as a quarterback.
I'm already at disadvantage. I have to pass. I don't know this stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to pass. That's way too many potential players.
Okay. This player's career high in touchdowns came in 2014.
2014 career high in touchdowns. Oh, that's so many guys. And the way you said that at quarterback makes me think that he's no longer a quarterback. And there's only a handful of those guys. I will pass here, probably.
I'm going to wait. I have a good guess, but it'll be way more satisfying if I can beat Thomas on the next question.
Oh,
All
get
right.
out of here, Lucas. You schmuck.
Terrell Pryor went to Ohio State, Toronto.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
This player had over 1,000 yards in 2014 and is still in the league today, but has never reached that mark since.
As a quarterback, is still in the league today and hasn't hit 1,000 yards since 2014. I'm trying to think of who's that old, bro. He used to play quarterback.
I really
Oh
thought
my-
Lucas would be all over this one.
Oh my god.
I thought so too, but with that most recent question, it makes me way more confused. Oh my gosh.
So we got SEC quarterback, career year in 2014, still in the league today, hasn't had 1,000 yards in 10 years.
I mean, that's shout out to who that is for how impressive it is to not have 1,000 yards for that long and still be in the league.
Tom, you got to get it on this clue. You may as well
I
fire
know.
off a guess here.
I'm thinking. Hold on. I need extra time here. If this is the last hint that we get.
You can have your time.
All right. I'm going to guess. Is it Jacoby Brissett?
It is not Jacoby Brissett.
And his last name doesn't fit the noun. Okay.
Hasn't
Got anything for us here?
is still in the league. I don't think I do, bro. I don't think I do.
All right.
I need to get a guess. I need to get a guess off. It's someone old. They've probably thrown a touchdown. Still in the league, 2014. I don't think Cam's not in the league. Oh, I you know what? I'll take no, it can't be Taysom Hill. He didn't hit 1,000 yards in 2014.
It's not. He's not from the SEC.
Nah, dude. I don't think I got it. New Orleans fullback, tight end. Oh, it can't be Jimmy Graham either. No, I'm out. I don't know. I'm gonna.
Right, I gotta hear the
Tap.
next one. I'm
Who
so
else?
disappointed in myself that I don't know who this is.
I have to concede. I don't know who this is. This is insane.
All right. We'll finish this out. Don't worry. Okay, here we go.
Wow.
This player excelled in high school at football, basketball, and track, eventually being recruited to the University of Kentucky.
Oh my gosh. Is it Randall Cobb?
Randall Cobb, correct.
Oh,
He was a
my
quarterback?
Gosh, yes, he was
Yeah.
a quarterback his first year and then transitioned to wide receiver. And oh, that got me. Oh, that is so good. So Randall Cobb actually grew up in my hometown. He did not go to
Alcoa?
the same high school. Yeah, so I grew up right beside Alcoa in the Maryville area in East Tennessee. I did not go to Alcoa High School, but he played in the same Pee Wee football league that I started playing in whenever I was a kid too, which is just like it's so wild. Wow. Oh my
Fixed.
god. I didn't realize that he was an all SEC freshman, but I believe it. I 100% believe that.
Randall Cobb. Yeah.
Brian
Wow.
Ford.
Quarterback
Brian Ford
originally.
says he's throwing a flag that only has one B. Oh man,
That
I
was a
gotta
good
concede.
one.
That were a lot
a
of really
good one.
good questions, Jacob. I'm only hoping next week, since you're not going to be here, I could only somehow find
yeah,
a
you
way
got a
to
hot
amount
five or five?
to
All right, I'm gonna
questions.
tune in for that. That'll be fun. All right, so updating the all-time scoreboard now. Thomas 1.5, Lucas 1, Derek Brown 1, Chat 0.5, and yeah, man, Randall Cobb is still hanging around. I believe he's
Still in the
technically on
league.
the New York Jets roster. Or actually, well, he's currently a free agent, but he's not yet retired, and he played all of last year on a roster, so that's good enough for me.
Revolta's
Also,
worth
so-
remembering Alfred Blue. Like that was another really good just pull out of nowhere. Damn, I really needed that Trent Green one, and it would have kept me in rhythm. But I was chalked after that. We're gonna take our last quick break, and we're gonna wrap up and get out of here. So sit tight. Jacob, you said before we went on that you didn't see a need do a 90-minute show in the middle of June, and it turns out that's all we can do is 90-minute shows in the middle of June, because we love this. We love just sitting down and talking ball, and that's what makes this show great. It's not about hot takes. It's not about being right or first or anything like that. It is just about challenging opinions, differing opinions, and how we can grow off of that. So love the show. We had a completely different topic planned, and then when I actually dove into it, it turned out that that topic didn't matter. We were going to do how to attack the market when it's moving, and I got to tell you, the market is just not moving because there's not a lot of things happening right now. Not a lot of news, not a lot of, reports, if you would, just a lot of coach speak and, trying to determine whether or not that helps your bias or hurts your bias, so you know what to tweet about and what to quote tweet your co-hosts and dad on, as so long as it fits your propaganda. Love this. Brian said but Ayuk video. Yeah, I mean, sure, but I'm not ripping my pants off for that. So like Jacob mentioned before, like we can touch on that. Like Jacob mentioned before, there's a few places where his situation, like his production and value could go up, but there's a lot of places where it could go down. So I'm not making any major moves on Ayuk right now. Brian Ford said, kidding about market moving and not news. Yeah, like it's just a weird time of year right now. But you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna be back here every week, just giving the best content that we can. However, before we get out of here and get final thoughts, I will say we only know what content you guys want to see if you leave a comment. So when this video ends, when I click the end button, right, and it shuts down, all you have to do is just leave a comment on the video after you've liked the video and hit subscribe, and it will let us know what you guys want to see, and then we'll make that content. Jacobs looks like he had a hard out, whether he had one or not, because his computer has decided to give him a hard out. For Jacob Sanderson, you need to go and be subscribing to Thinking About Thinking. This is a Substack. It is hot best ball summer. So and Brian Ford says, I want to see a scene where Jacob calls Tom daddy. I'm going to make it happen because the person at the wedding social said that I could be his dad, or asked if I was his dad, and I'm never going to let him live that down. That's why I love this show. Lucas, we're going to see you next week. Loved this show. Love all of you. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose in your best days. They're always spent tilting. Good night, everyone.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.